Right, so today we are watching one of the most interesting Jubilee videos of all time. It's called Do All Killers Think the Same? So let's just jump straight into it.
I did immediately regret it in a sense where I called my mom and I apologized to her and I said, I'm so sorry, I think I killed your husband. But then there was also the sense of like, oh my gosh, I don't have to keep looking over my shoulders anymore. I don't have to live in this fear that he's gonna actually come after me because it already happened.
Oh, damn. I knew that this was gonna be a variety of killers, especially given they use the word killer. To kill someone just means that you caused their death, whereas murder means that you did so illegally. And I get the feeling some of these killings are gonna be a lot more justified than others. Just like that one sounds like it might be, so let's find out. By the way, the show is called Spectrum. They're not Spectrum Killers. Just in case anyone was assuming the latter and assuming Spectrum meant something other than the range of ideas.
I would kill them again. 3, 2, 1, go.
Wow.
Thomas Ogden was a beautiful person, and he was my friend, and what happened was an accident, and I would give anything to have him back. My name's Forrest, and I accidentally shot and killed my best friend when I was 23 years old. I felt like a shattered person most of my life, and there are still shards missing, but I just spent the last 5 years writing a very painful memoir. It gave me an opportunity to visit a lot of past trauma. I feel in a strong space to be a support for other survivors and create positivity in the world.
Fair play for him doing this. You could see it immediately the second he started speaking about Thomas, he said his name was, how painful this is to speak about even after all these years. And so to go through this on camera in no small part to help other people who are in a similar position, yeah, fair play to him.
All my killing has been in the time of war, so I agree with what I've done. Would I do it again? I would, because if I didn't kill that individual, they would have killed me or somebody else. I was a sniper, so I'm looking after a platoon of 20, 30 guys, sometimes as small as 6 guys. But I don't strongly agree with it because of the after effects, like what it did to me mentally. You know, I was the first person I killed, I was 18, and I didn't stop until I was almost 25. So I don't regret any of it. I don't have any bad feelings towards those individuals that I did kill. They were just protecting their homeland just as much as I would too. So I would do it again to save my life or somebody else's life.
That's so interesting. I was surprised for him to say all that and then go on to empathize and kind of be like, I was just killing someone in a similar situation to me. I understand more how you can justify it in that exact moment, like going, either I kill this guy or this guy kills me. But I thought there might be some disagreement about why he was there in the first place. I mean, obviously it's super complicated and very multifaceted, but I wonder if he agrees with the fundamental reasons he and his fellow troops went to war, especially given he kind of gave a nod to why they were there and why they were fighting, which was to defend their homeland. But that could get very complicated and very political depending on where exactly he served. And maybe he'll come onto it later.
I work in healthcare. What I do is I manage life support. So I'm the guy that pulls the plug on just about everybody. So I come from a very different perspective. I have to do that for babies all the way to people at the end of their lives. I've been doing this for over a dozen years now, so I'm like, okay, I've come to terms with what the job is. So yeah.
Damn, that's quite using the word killing for him, for someone who is essentially alleviating suffering. I mean, I guess it depends on your ethical perspective, because I can understand how a religious person might think that this was not morally good because life is inherently sacred. But under any kind of compassionate, secular humanist view, you are just alleviating suffering and respecting autonomy. Sometimes one, sometimes the other, sometimes both. It's also actually controversial whether it's considered killing, because you're not actively doing something to cause the death, you're withdrawing something that's actively preventing the death. But again, that is a complicated philosophical question, so maybe we'll get onto that later.
The crime and how it happened, it was not, I didn't go out to kill this person. And now understanding the impact that the crime had, not only on me, but the family of that person. That was a human being that I killed over some drugs. right? And his children, his family is living still in the absence of this person. It was December the 24th, Christmas Eve night. I remember me and a couple of my friends were hanging out. This particular car came up, and the passenger in the car said, hey, I want to buy some drugs from you. So I told one of my friends, I'm like, he's known to be this person that will come through the community and ask for $100 worth of drugs, but he would never have the money. And the guy did exactly what I said. He knocked the drugs out of my friend's hand, grabbed his arm, and started speeding off. And my reaction at that time was I pulled out the gun and I started shooting into the car to get him to release my friend. And days later, we heard that the bullet that I shot into the car actually killed him. To that day, I will never forget December the 24th, when that happened, the day before Christmas.
I would 100% do what I had to do over again, because the guy was a serial perpetrator. He was after so many women. If he killed me, he would have went after my mom, all my family, my nieces, my nephews, every one of us, until he literally got what he wanted. I'm Tara Newell. I killed my attacker, Dirty John Meehan, in self-defense. I think it was really interesting how there was one person here who had experienced prison reform, because to me, my attacker would have been in there if I hadn't killed him in self-defense. And it's really interesting to hear about how there are people in there who are able to rehabilitate.
Wow, I can see why so many people say this is such an interesting episode. They have a serious range of quote-unquote killers in this one. I think it's going to be so interesting not only seeing how they answer a lot of these questions, but how they also interact with each other. Especially, as Tara said, there might be some overlap in their situations.
I immediately regretted it. 3, 2, 1, go.
Why do I strongly
Strong,
disagree?
yeah.
Like I said, I was a young kid. I was 18. The first guy I killed was with the 50 cal like machine gun. I was expecting it to be like the movies where you have this like feeling of when you kill someone, and it wasn't there. I didn't really feel anything. It wasn't until like that night I had this weird dream. The guy who I shot became a ceiling fan in my room. His arms and legs were the blades. His head was the center of the fan. And I watched him spin faster and faster until he tore apart and covered me in what he used to be, what was left of him. But no, I didn't feel anything. There was nothing like to feel. I knew that was the beginning of something that I was probably gonna have to do for a while. No attachment at the time.
Bro said I didn't feel anything and then just described the most traumatizing dream ever that he had immediately after. I guess he's saying like immediately after pulling the trigger and like consciously, like of course his dream is probably his subconscious really struggling to deal with the fact that he's killed someone, and maybe he's not entirely aware of that or he's blocking it out. But that sounds like it impacted him pretty heavily, just not how he expected. So that is what I expected from him. I did think that in the heat of the moment in a battle, you wouldn't think about it too much. It would only be later down the line where you go like, was any of this justified? Were the reasons that we were there justified? Was this man just doing what I would have done if I was him in his country, and there were people doing to me what we were doing to them?
I can agree with you on that. I mean, identify with that, because my first couple of years inside of prison, I detached from it completely. When people would mention his name, I would like, don't see him as a human being. And that was very insensitive when I look back at it now, right? But I look and say that that was a way of me coping with the situation at that time.
I think there would be a less immediate regret for him as well, because he didn't know that he had killed someone for a while. Like he didn't just shoot someone and they died in front of him. Like he sprayed bullets into the car and then found out later that they died.
I did immediately regret it in a sense, where I called my mom and I apologized to her and I said, I'm so sorry, I think I killed your husband. So there was that, but then there was also the sense of like, oh my gosh, I don't have to keep looking over my shoulders anymore. I don't have to live in this fear that he's gonna actually come after me, because it already happened.
Yeah, for her, it almost feels like less of a choice than a necessity to kill. Like the first two guys, Lester and Nick, were armed. They were probably expecting at some point to have the possibility of shooting someone. And given the scenario they put themselves in, i.e. going to war or dealing drugs on the streets whilst armed, it probably wasn't particularly surprising that they ended up using their firearms. So for Tara, it was much more of a defensive than an attacking option. So even though she would have felt like she had to, I'm not really surprised that she has more regret because she didn't want to put herself in a situation where she might have to kill someone. And of course, having to ring up your mum and being like, I killed someone you love, even though from the implication of what we've heard so far, he was profoundly evil.
Sometimes family members don't agree with the decision, and that decision is sometimes taken away from them. Being called every name in the book as I'm walking in there. But if they just don't agree, and then I'm like, I just have to go do this now, you know? But it doesn't feel good, or like I'm not necessarily agreeing with it. So I'm like, I disagree, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes it a lot harder than if it's someone saying, I want you to pull the plug, or someone's family going, they're suffering, pull it. It reminds me of that story from a few years ago of George Pickering II, who went into a medical center and essentially had a standoff with the SWAT team protecting his son, saying, you're not going to pull my son off life support. His son had a history of long seizures and then had one that the doctors thought would prove fatal. Apparently the medical staff told the father that the son was brain dead, and so said that they were going to take him off life support, at which point the father went into the medical center with a gun and had the standoff. Amazingly, apparently during the several-hour standoff, the son squeezed the father's hand several times. And even more astoundingly, the son ended up making a full recovery. The dad only ended up spending about 11 months in prison, but I'm sure he would have risked a lot more for that. And so I'm sure with these kinds of stories, families hearing that their loved one is going to be taken off life support are definitely just not always going to agree, and probably would struggle to feel stronger about anything in their entire lives. So yeah, the reducing suffering and granting bodily autonomy thing must make it easier, but dealing with family members and loved ones that don't agree with the decision must make it so much harder.
The level of heartbreak that I felt immediately after that gunshot was indescribable. And I don't know if any of you have saw Red before, but I actually saw Red. And it was the most horrific thing I've ever seen, experienced, witnessed, felt in my life. I got charged with first-degree murder that night, and I was looking at doing 35 to life here in California. I couldn't even process that. There was just so much, a combination of horror and grief immediately.
Wow, yeah, probably the least surprising one of them all. And that regret is still evidently just so raw in him.
I am desensitized to death. 3, 2, 1, go.
Somewhat agree. Why is that?
Yeah, why is that?
I do a lot of volunteer work, and the amount of people who are dying from drug overdoses and suicides right now in the arena of trauma, it's becoming difficult for me to feel anything anymore with the amount of people that we're losing that we don't have to.
For me, it was almost like playing God, you know? I determined the time, place, when I'm gonna take that person off this planet. And it put things into perspective for me too, that I could be gone at any certain time. Like when you have to pull it, you know, you don't know when that card is gonna be pulled. So I've learned to value it more and know that it's very fragile, very frail. And to not feel anything towards killing someone would probably be more devastating to me than actually taking a life. It's not feeling.
That one, I can't lie, is surprising to me. I thought after all his years of serving and taking people's lives, that he would at least be somewhat desensitized to it.
Hold on, I need to clarify something.
Yeah.
I just want to be very clear that being desensitized in no way means that I don't value life.
Oh, yeah.
It's just difficult to
manage to
feel the mourning over and over again.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I agree with you. Like there will be certain stories that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. But if someone just tells me like, oh, that person died of a heart attack, I'm just like, oh, okay. Like it just like, there's no traumatic incident with that. So I'm like, my brain just disassociates and it's like, okay, oh, they died naturally, so.
That's interesting. It makes sense. Like comparing it to the traumatic experience where you've stared death in the face, regular deaths that don't have that level of trauma might not have the same effect on you as they would had you not experienced that event yourself.
From where I come from, like I get to know a lot of these people. If I don't get to know them, I get to know their family members like very intimately. It's not immediate like, oh, they're coming in and they're gonna go. No, it's like weeks, months. I've had somebody like their 5-year-old son, and he was in the room, and I'm like, I gotta take your mom away now. And it's like, after that, I'm like, oh my God, I'll go call my mom or I'll go call my dad. It's like, it's really heavy. But I feel, like you said, like a sense of maximization of like, I don't know when my number is going to be called. Because even if I'm working in the emergency room, we've worked on somebody for 2 hours and they're like, we really can't do anything anymore. And I'm like, just like that.
That's another one of the same. I thought because he dealt with it so frequently and because it was a part of his job, it would almost, to at least some extent, be normalized. Not that that would strip away any of the empathy or understanding or the emotions he would feel at it or the complexity of death itself, but just being exposed to it so much, I thought might desensitize him to it somewhat. So yeah, interesting to see him essentially say, hasn't desensitized me at all.
I remember this one patient, it was very much like nobody was there. They just found him on the street. He didn't even have a wallet. He was clinically dead brain-wise, so we couldn't really do anything anymore. Me, the nurse, and the doctor just stayed in that room until his heart rate left because we didn't want to see him leave by himself. That was one of the most sobering moments too. It's like, as much as it was nice for us to do that, I just don't want strangers around me, seeing me off.
Damn, wow, yeah, bittersweet. Thankfully didn't die alone, but died surrounded by strangers.
I think for me as a teenager, selling drugs, just hanging in the streets, just living a lifestyle that I didn't care if I killed someone. I was very desensitized. I didn't care. I didn't feel no remorse for it. And this was part of my own personal development. I needed to find a way to attach to that. So I started doing this hospice training inside of one of the prisons. And by listening to these individuals tell their story and the regrets that they were living with in their process of transitioning, it gave me a sense of a value of life now, and it shifted my mindset as this teenager who was very callous towards life at that time.
It is interesting to hear his story because that growth is just utterly transformational. To go from someone who doesn't care about taking another person's life and can do so to someone who clearly understands the value of and values other people's lives. It really is a powerful case for pro-rehabilitation.
I've taken care of people, they're being on life support. They'll hang on for like a very long time till one specific person sometimes just visits them. And then I'm like, I can't explain that. I could take them off. And their heart rate will keep going and going and going.
One of the guys I was working with in the prison, he wanted to see his sister. Yes. So this dude held on until like his sister walked into the room, and he was like not consciously, but like she spoke to him and she started like talking to him, and you started seeing him move. And then soon as she was like, I'm leaving. And like within minutes, this guy like transitioned.
Yeah, with my situation, I made him brain dead, and so he was in the hospital. And then when they pulled the plug on him, my mom literally had to tell him it's okay to go now, and then he left.
Wow.
Some weird things about that.
Yeah.
I think we're more than just our brain, right?
We're spirits living in flesh, man.
That's so interesting. I don't necessarily think that that's evidence for any kind of like supernatural existence outside of our material body. But I definitely think that it says a lot about the power of the mind over the body. It really reminds me of that experiment from the 1950s done on rats by Dr. Kurt Paul Richter at Johns Hopkins University. And it's all about the psychological effect of things like hope and resilience in survival. So in the experiment, Dr. Richter filled up glass jars with water and put rats in them to see how long they would swim for before giving up and drowning. He observed that on average, this took about 15 minutes. But then in a second group, just before the rats were expected to drown, at about the 15-minute mark, Dr. Richter saved them. He took them out the water, he dried them, and he let them rest for a bit, but then he put them back in the water. Astonishingly, after being saved once, the rats didn't give up after 15 minutes. They survived for over 60 hours. Dr. Richter concluded that the hope and the belief that survival was possible that saving them gave them just pushed them so far beyond their previous limits. And of course, stress tolerances and adaptation and physiological changes all played a part, but your psychological state really can have a strong impact on your body and its survival. Now, that is of course a very simplified overview of the whole thing, but if you found it interesting, go check it out. It's really cool. All right, another big yappy sciencey tangent. Let's get back to the video.
I am also a victim. 3, 2, 1, go.
I feel weird.
We're not trying to single you out.
But I feel like I have to be over here because The guy came after me. I was in a parking garage. I was just trying to go to the Jason Aldean concert that night. He started attacking me, stabbing me, and I fought back and I won. So I didn't ask for any of that. I honestly hated the guy and I wished he would be dead, but I never wanted to unalive or take someone's life.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying before. Like, she just didn't ask to be there. So she is very much a victim. But the other four, I'm more surprised about.
My first couple years in prison, I saw myself as the victim, right? And that was, again, a way of me coping. As I continued to do some interpersonal work, I realized that I was not a victim, that I still made a choice in the crime that I committed, right? But I just wanted to share that. Like, I wanted to run over there, but I'm in this place of healing and reconciliation, and I had to like move away from the victimization mindset and take ownership for the decision that I actually pulled the trigger, committed the crime, unfortunately, and someone died, and I have to take that on because that's part of my own personal growth and development.
Damn, I really respect that. I think the accountability and the individual responsibility is just a really admirable thing to see. But I wouldn't necessarily have blamed him if he had stepped one step closer to the center and been like, at the time, I was a victim to my surroundings. I was a victim of my environment. You know, maybe dealing drugs was the only way to make money around there because the job opportunities were bad and the education was bad and his upbringing was bad. Not saying that any of those is necessarily true, and that doesn't take away any of the individual accountability. I think it's more an acknowledgement that people are products of their environment, and you can be a victim of that whilst also taking individual accountability for your own actions.
I remember on a Friday night, 3 years into my incarceration, I remember laying in my bed watching this show called Dateline, and for the first time I heard a mother really expressing her loss for the loss of her loved one, and that was that moment in my life where I connected with that. I'm like, yo, I did the same thing. And I went into a fetus position and I started praying, and all I kept hearing hearing this voice saying, I have forgiven you. You have to ask Gary, the guy that you killed, to forgive you. And in that process, this is where I began. I remember saying, Gary, would you forgive me? And I literally felt like in that moment, he forgave me, and I heard it. And it's almost like a weight was lifted off of me. And that's when I began this cleansing, this process of healing and moving forward and finding a purpose and finding my voice and all of that particular night inside of that prison when I surrendered to it.
Wow, what an epiphany. I think if I was him, I'd be a little bit more skeptical about getting Gary's forgiveness. I feel like when you're feeling those kind of emotions, your brain can play tricks on you. You can experience things, very powerful things, very real things, but not necessarily supernatural things. So I wonder if I had that feeling, whether I'd be saying, you know, Gary's dead. How can I sit here and say, I believe he's forgiven me? But at the same time, regardless of whether or not Gary does exist in any sense of the word to be able to forgive him, that was clearly a very powerful and productive experience for him, and I'm glad it had such a positive impact on him.
No, I don't feel like I'm a victim for anything. Like, I chose that path. Started off wanting to be a Navy SEAL when I was like in elementary school. My mom helped me make my first ghillie suit when I was in the 6th grade. Like, it's something I've always wanted to do, and I knew it came with that, which was more than likely having to kill someone, especially in a time of war.
Yeah, I mean, again, just trying to think of like arguments potentially from the other side. Could he say that he might have been a victim of his environment growing up? I mean, to know what a Navy SEAL is as a kid and think they're cool, could you argue that's a failure of society? Could you say that he's a victim of propaganda? What about potential propaganda that the government pushed for justifying the war? All potentially quite reasonable arguments in my opinion. But again, overall, I really do rate the individual responsibility and accountability because I think both are just very important.
Yeah, I'm not a victim, but the only thing I would say is like they don't really prepare us into doing the job that we do. They do the day-to-day thing. Oh, this is what you do, this is what you chart and all that stuff. And then now you're like, oh, by the way, the doctor wrote the order, go take him off. And now I gotta walk in, or like, if it's a baby, they're still holding them in their hands and stuff. And like, go take them off. And so I never really thought about it. Like, nobody's like talked to me or anything like, by the way, this is where you're gonna feel afterwards, or like when you get home after you clock out and everything like that.
See, that sounds like a failure of the system. He's in healthcare taking people's lives, and there's no mental psychological preparation or ongoing therapy offered. Why the fuck not?
Yeah, we didn't have a handbook on that either. Like, yeah, they teach you how to kill, but there's no
how to process
it.
I have profited from the murder 3, 2, 1, go.
Make me feel bad about this.
Yeah, like we said at the start, murder is the unlawful killing of a human being, and that is not what a lot of these people did. And I think Lester's situation is the only one that applies here, because Forrest, it was accidental death, Tara, it was self-defense, and Franco and Nick did or do so as a part of their job legally. So I wonder why they've switched from kill to murder here.
That word's kind of
Strong, yeah.
Blood money.
That's what I'm thinking.
Why don't you like that word? I don't like it
All
either.
right, I don't think it applies universally.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely,
Homicide is a universal term. As far as profiting from any part of my story, no. I've spent the last 5 years struggling to write and publish a book, and I've spent about 80 G's on it and made about 4,000. And that's not why I did it. I did it because I want to help people, but I don't think that it's very common for people to profit off of recovery from stuff, right? Well, maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that is not a profit. He's 76 grand down so far, but hopefully he'll break even and the book will help a lot of people.
I guess I'll go over here then. My attacker, my show got made into a podcast called Dirty John, and then it got made into a documentary, a TV show on Bravo, and now on Netflix. And so I felt like I've been exploited in the sense because I did not make anything off of the podcast. Although people think I profited off my story, I did not.
But also, and you get paid to take his life?
No, not at all.
Okay, so if you profited off of if I profit off of anything, it's my hard work afterwards.
Yeah.
It's my hard work to share and be of service. So no, you didn't. People hate profit sometimes. They just hate you just because you made money.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective, saying I didn't profit from the murder if I didn't make money from the killing itself. I think it's interesting to disconnect the two entirely when there's an obvious causal chain. But I think there's also something to be said about the foreseeability of it all. Like if you're sitting there with a gun and when you're pulling the trigger, you're going, I'm going to sell a story about this, or I'm going to receive a chunk of inheritance down the line, or, you know, my business of selling drugs on the streets is going to boom because of this, because we've got no competition. You are profiting from the murder directly and foreseeably. Whereas I think for them going like, I accidentally killed someone or I killed in self-defense, but at the time I had no idea that I would go on to write a book about this or, you know, sell documentary rights or whatever. There's obviously no intention to make money, and they are not foreseeing them making money as a result of that action, and it doesn't factor in. So I think that definitely impacts, at the very least, how dirty the money is. And that's not to imply that all the money necessarily would be dirty. I think it's totally reasonable for him to say, I'm releasing this book as a result of my hard work and me dealing with this, and I didn't plan or intend to make money when I killed this person. So there shouldn't necessarily be any kind of moral or controversial issue with me making profit.
For me as a speaker and a trainer, I struggled with that for a long time, right? You know, I committed this crime, and yes, I did all of the work that I have done to become the man that I am today. But then I don't sleep at night, right, knowing that I've made this bag of money or whatever. Any money I get, I want to be able to live comfortable. It's not about getting something in luxury. How could I help some young person? So we do the nonprofit work. But my 5-year goal now, or 10-year goal, is to use whatever profit I make is to create a foundation in honor of Gary. Going back to that promise I made to him almost 30 years ago inside of a prison cell.
Damn, fair play to him. It's obviously very macabre, and I'm not saying at all that it would outweigh the negatives, but it's so good to see so much good also come from all of this tragedy.
It initially started as me writing a journal. My dad suggested I did that. I was going through a hard time, self-medicating and contemplating some bad decisions. Started off as that, and it got picked up by a major book publishing company, and it went on to become essentially like an autobiography of that time in. After accomplishing that, I went on to what I do currently, which is write, you know, novels and stuff like that, not based on my life, because I did feel a certain way about it, of profiting from killing, you know. I get what you're saying too. All the work that you put in thereafter, that's on you, you know, but I also see it as, well, I killed all these guys and I wrote a book about it. and profited from it.
Were you an E4, E5?
E5, yeah.
That's all the money you made off it.
Right?
Once again, complex issue that gets lumped together. If somebody has money, they must be doing something for
bad,
profit.
yeah.
And I think where an answer is, I mean, do we follow purpose or do we follow the money? It's going to go away when I die. It's not going to matter. What's going to matter when I die is what I did. Am I proud of myself for the things that I did?
I often see money more of like as an amplifier for what people can do, what reach they can do.
Yeah, what you can make impact on now, like knowing like when I go speak to young people today about gun violence and about my story, the only way they can get out of a situation is if I have money.
Yeah.
Right? That I can create a safe space for them to go after school. So I have to make some money to be able to do that, you know what I mean? But I don't want to make a bunch of money and I'm living here and then I walk into the community and say, hey, young kids, put the guns down, prison, say no to prison, and then I drive away in this nice car and forget about them, right? So that's where I'm at, like, purpose for me is about how do I make impact in the lives of the people that I serve.
I rate the self-awareness. But then again, he could turn around and be like, look, when I was dealing drugs and involved in gang violence, that was when I had no money and no opportunities and life sucked. But now I'm away from all that crime and I live a better life and I live a life of purpose and stability and productivity and all this kind of stuff. Now I have the nice things. You want what I've got? You want the nice watch and the nice car that I'm about to drive away in? Turn away from this life and find something that means something to you, that has purpose and is important for society. And also you can get paid doing, because that is what led me here. All of the guns and violence and stuff led me to prison. And you can learn from me and skip all of those life lessons and get straight to chasing the right kind of dreams. But then again, yeah, maybe he's also kind of going like, oh, you can do all the bad things. And if it doesn't work out, later down the line, you can turn your life around and profit from it like I did. So I definitely get where he's coming from there.
Taking a life was part of God's plan for me. 3, 2, 1, go.
I'm unclear with that one. That's why I'm like this.
You're on the other side.
Yeah, I wouldn't be who I am today to be able to have the experience that I've had and become who I've become without taking a life. I learned my lesson after all the killing. You know, my last deployment dropped over 30 guys, 33 people, and who knows how many before that. But what I had to get through and overcome to stand here today far exceeded anything I've done in the military. Being emotionally somewhat strong and what I've had to overcome. There's been a lot of dark nights where didn't think I was gonna be here, you know?
Why I'm like this?
Yeah, I know what you mean though, yeah.
I don't want it to be perceived to be insensitive about the victim.
Yeah.
Right, but I know on this part of me, I look at my friends who I grew up with at 19 years old, and I did 22 years in prison, and when I came back home, they were at the same spot under the same tree we sold drugs at. But then if over here, I think about the Gold Dinger's family, because you know their son is like, oh, God destined my son, my brother or my son to die. You know what I mean? So. But
if you believe in God, then that would be, he already knew that before you
I
were
get
born,
that part.
You know?
I mean, I'm a spiritual man, right? But I'm
same.
just like, I don't want it to. It's just that's my dilemma when it comes
If
to
there's a God, I don't think that he's letting some kid be blown apart in Iraq because he's busy helping me look for a parking space. Right? I don't think that the realm of the spirit is as concerned with human affairs. I think that the sun rises and sets for a reason. It rockets through space at 40,000 miles an hour with a bunch of rocks around it for a reason, and animals have instinct for a reason, and I think human beings,
free will.
It's a little different.
Free
and
will.
I think things just happen sometimes. There doesn't have to be meaning or a plan.
But then it's hard for a person who lost a loved one to wrap that. For me, my homicide is completely different than most of you in this room. Is someone died by me pulling this trigger. And I can't say it was in God's plan.
I pulled the trigger too. I thought the gun was empty. And I still can't wrap my head around a stupid decision like that. Even though that it malfunctioned and acted unloaded, had I done all the right things, the 4 safety rules, it never would have happened. And I was nervous coming here because I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking. And I had no intent at all. There's no way I would have as soon put it to my head. or at the floor or whatever. And I can't remember ever doing that before or after. And it was a mistake.
This is a really interesting question, but I think too complicated for this format. Because God isn't clearly defined in the question and people have different ideas of God, they're all essentially answering different questions. I mean, there was hints of an omnipotent and omniscient God that's all powerful and all knowing. And if that God exists, he set everything in motion, knowing everything that would happen. Therefore, everything is a part of God's plan and divine will. There's hints of spirituality. There's hints of purpose to some things, but no purpose to other things. And so I don't think this is clear enough to answer easily. And I think that's a big part of the reason the conversation seems to be going off at slightly different tangents here. And although everything everyone's saying is super interesting, it's probably not as productive as it could be.
I think for me, it was part of my dharma. I'm a little bit more spiritual, so I think it was my life's purpose, to be honest. Because of what I do today, whenever I speak, I always have people contact me and say that they left an abusive relationship, or what I shared helped them get out of their attack.
Sharing your story helps other people, and you feel that.
I call it transparency transports people. That's why I'm like really honest about who I am, because there's someone else, not just in a physical prison, but an emotional, mental prison. And by hearing your story, hearing all of our stories, it helps transport them to another space of showing that I can't escape this particular prison.
After having this discussion, Lester, choose a side.
Damn.
Really?
Can't make you.
I'm just gonna say, I don't think it's fair to make you choose a side. You believe what you believe.
I'm gonna stand just a little bit over there. Please. Like, respectful.
I really like what you did, man, because we move in seconds and inches.
Yeah.
We measure progress in like
I'm right here.
years, you know?
Damn, fair play. And yeah, I don't think he has to pick a side. Why does he? Why does he have to say whether or not he believes it was part of God's plan? He's more than entitled to hold his hands up and say, I don't know. Or even, like he hinted at as well, I don't necessarily want to say. I don't want to sit here and say, yes, it was God's divine will that this person died. This lady's son, this man's son, this girl's brother, this daughter's father. Who is he to say that? And how could he possibly know? But I guess we've got to remember that this challenge isn't all about seeking truth and knowledge. It is in no small part about entertainment. It is a YouTube channel.
There are enough resources for me to heal. 3, 2, 1, go.
Wow.
When I was in the military, it was like looked down upon to go seek mental help or anything. Dude, you'd get kicked off the team, in a heartbeat.
That's so stupid. Getting kicked off the team for seeking mental health support after serving in war. Or arguably even more stupid, for the team during it. If you've got a squad of 10 of you and one of you is seriously struggling with their mental health, it is in everyone's best interest that they get better. For your safety, for their safety, for the safety of everyone else involved, including the people that person might come into contact with, civilians, prisoners of war, detainees, etc. That is, again, a massive failure of an institution.
I don't want a guy who's soft watching my back, or what I perceived at the time to be soft. After each deployment, our therapist was like a 18-wheeler truck full of kegs of beer and more beer. And 12 hours ago, I just took a life, 21 years old, at a strip club in Atlanta, drinking, till my eyes pop out to cope. We would talk to like a psychiatrist, but we were encouraged to write down, I didn't have this emotion, I didn't see this, so we could get home early to see our family. But 2 or 3 years ago, I decided to talk to someone and figure out why I was the way I was, because I wanted to change. I didn't like being, everywhere I went, I'm looking at everyone and it's gonna sound so bad, but I was polite to everybody who I met, but I always in the back of my mind had a plan to kill them, just in case the situation presented itself. If something went south, I've already mapped out and planned for 3 different scenarios how I would kill this person. And I was comfortable being in that state of mind because it kept that protection, that wall up. But it gets tiring after a while to always be that way.
For me, I look at this, right? I want to run over here to the strongly disagree. It's almost because of the length of your sentence, and you, like I was serving life, I didn't become eligible for most of the classes in prison until I came down to my last 3 years in prison, right? Now I have to run back over here to strongly agree. After being a person who's been released from prison, I've learned these different things that now help me to cope with all of the stuff that comes with me living inside of a prison, not only being a person who took someone's life, but seeing other individuals get killed inside of the prison. Right, you see people get stabbed in prison over some of the simplest things. No one would come and talk to you about, like, was that triggering for you? How did you saw this person blood spill out over the concrete? Nothing, right? This is why I challenge the prison system and anyone who works in that prison environment to create more mental health services for those in prison, because yes, that person may have committed a violent crime, but we don't know their story.
I'm like that with the military, man.
Yeah.
There's not enough, in my opinion.
The
It's
VA
not encouraged enough, yeah.
The VA helped me somewhat, right? I'm not going to say the VA didn't help. But when I was suicidal, I didn't call the VA helpline because I didn't want to sit here and fill out a strongly agree and disagree form and wait in a waiting room. And I called another brother, and he sent me to a program called Save a Warrior, and I experienced something, it might sound weird, called initiation there. The participant faces their own death, and they receive a transitional object. And something about that changed my psyche, and something clicked. And we did stuff like the ceremony for the dead there, where we write the names of the people we've lost and the people we've killed, and we get to cry and like feel and process and become human again, because war can break us, and prison can break us and make us incomplete and not human. And when we use different modalities to place that humanity back together, then we can have community, right? And community is the antidote to a lot of human suffering.
Yes, sir.
I wrote a 12-step program for vets and first responders called SPARTA, Suicide Prevention and Resilience Training Anonymous. We meet once a week. And I used to think there wasn't enough resources, and the more I get involved, it's not that the help isn't needed, it's that there's abundant ability to create resources, right? And once we break that, we start to be the creator of it, we create the small nonprofit that serves the area. It's like the Matrix fails, you know?
Yeah.
This is why these videos are so interesting. They just give you a crazy insight into a world that you don't ever really think about existing. Like, unless you are someone who's taken someone's life, or someone close to you has done so, and either you or they have needed these resources or gone through these experiences. All of these like philosophical questions, political questions, institutional questions, societal questions, all these points and opinions and facts and outlooks and perspectives, like you never really would come across them or even consider them. It's just so fascinating. And it's also weirdly kind of motivating. Like, even though none of this affects me, hearing about the amount of failure out there to support these people and get them through it and prevent things like this happening makes you want to be like, guys, we need to do something about this. Like, makes you want to go outside and like yell it from the rooftops and be like, guys, there are so many places in our society where we need to do better and we just aren't. But then you could watch a video exactly like this on a slightly different topic and be like, the exact same thing is a massive issue here. And it starts to become almost overwhelming, just being like, where the hell do we begin? But you got to start somewhere, right? And Sparta not only sounds productive, but it has an epic name. If you're wondering why I smiled when he said Sparta.
That was long, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Well, I have to apologize for like chuckling when you said that part, because I was like, oh wait, I have a plan to kill people too, unfortunately. And then I used humor as my trauma response sometimes. So I strongly agree that I have the resources and the tools I need, because I'm gonna forever be on my healing journey, and I'm always gonna look for them and find them. However, talk therapy, I don't think is very beneficial to a lot of people. I think that a lot of therapists need to learn about the nervous system, because a lot of what we went through, we had to use our fight response. So I had to learn how to calm my nervous system to get to homeostasis, to the baseline.
It's like, as a person of color, it's like growing up, like as an immigrant, it's more like it is what it is. When you like things happen to you, it's like, you don't really like, oh yeah, go see your therapist or anything like that. Especially working through the pandemic, I have never seen like that much death in my whole life. And I've been doing this for, at the time, like 10 years. And this was before the vaccine. And I'm like, I don't see the end of this tunnel yet. For me to quit the job would mean other people would die. And for me to continue this job, meaning I would die. And then that was the first time I'm like, I really don't know what to do right here. And that's the first time I'm like, wait, there's this thing called therapist. Maybe I should go talk to one. I wish it was more readily available and accepted at the same time, because none of my friends go and see their therapist, and I can completely tell them, like, you wouldn't have certain amount of issues if you just kind of worked on yourself in a different way.
Not even just like accepted, like this should be pushed. Like if you're a healthcare provider and you're employing someone whose job it is to pull the plug on people on life support, one of the first things surely you should be thinking is, we need to make sure that this person is emotionally supported for this. Like this is not a normal thing for a human to do. We have not evolved to be able to deal with this much death and trauma. We need to be supporting these people as much as possible. And the fact that it sounds like it's not even mentioned to them is crazy.
Or maybe not therapist, but like a different way, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
just
like
spiritual
coaching
healers.
or
It's like right here too, again, I want to run over here, right? Went in prison at 19, walked out, I was 41, into a completely different world, right?
Wow.
So now, like my organization, Path to Redemption, is that I want to provide that service. Like how do you cope with when you walk into a grocery store after 20 years and you walk in the self-serving line, you got to swipe that card and you don't know how. Or you walk through a line and it beeps, right? Yeah. And you thinking that is going to be tackled by the police because they think you're stealing something, right? And this is why, like you and I, individuals can create that.
You're gonna be made.
I'm running over.
All right, so there is not by any means enough space to talk about, like I was a foster kid, right? So I got raised in poverty and abuse and negative relationships. So what did I do when I grew up? I created poverty and I created negative relationships, right? And that type of a wound, it's such a cultural taboo that there's not a space to talk about that and the impacts, and then what do we do and where do we go from there? So
come on back over here. You got me feeling kind of. I was saying I wanted to do it, right? But I think that's important, man.
And everybody in this circle is a wounded healer and also a servant leader, right? So when we see a gap and something that's needed, it's not just us. So that's where a tremendous opportunity is to create and be of service to other people like us.
I would say it was dope talking to y'all, like learning the different angles of, because I was kind of like skirmish about that title Killer, but listening to all of the different facets and challenges of it, you know, I really appreciate it. For me, I go back to South Carolina and go back into the Department of Juvenile Justice and work with these young people. This is what I want to take back, right? Like this, I want to take that.
Same boat, man. A lot of preconceived notions we have about people. I might look at you a certain way, you, and never would have had a clue that there's a commonality or something we can all relate on and learn from.
It's not every day you get to meet someone that's taken a life, or, you know, and for me, it's made me feel alone at times and not be able to be understood by people because of the emotions and stuff that we have to go through.
I agree.
Wow, that was such an interesting video. I appreciate it was really deep and really dark at points, but I really hope you guys enjoyed it too. I also know a lot of those topics are really sensitive, so I hope you can appreciate where I came from with a lot of my views, even if you disagreed with me. And I'm sure there were times when I could have worded things better, so I hope you give me the benefit of the doubt if you're unsure which way I meant things. And yeah, I really do enjoy doing these deeper, more profound videos, so if you enjoy them too, please do let me know. Hit like on the video so I can see it. I read a lot of the comments, so leave a little comment below letting me know what you thought of all of this, of the video itself, the opinions expressed in it, the things that I've said, anything you want to say to add to the conversation. And most importantly, if you want to see more videos like this, please do feel free to subscribe down below, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. And last but not least, thanks for watching. Bye.